Hi, my name's Starsky and welcome to From the Studio on Clubbing TV. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at Moog's latest offering, and that's the Mavis. And here it is, all built in its tiny glory, and it comes in its own box. It's got its own lid, which is quite handy on something this small. And it comes with a few patch sheets, which is really handy to get you up and running. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there. And we'll make one of these sounds in a minute. It also comes with a few patch cables. We've got 5 there. Plus we get this, which is a big sort of instruction manual. And it's nice to have something printed. On the back we've got the assembly instructions, and there's actually about 4 steps. Attach the feet, secure the panel, mount the assembly to the chassis, and then add the light pipe for the LFO, and that's it. And the manual itself is really quite comprehensive because there's not that much on it, so there's not that much to explain. But if we just take a look at what we've got here. It's a really simple little monosynth. It's semi-modular, as you can see. We've got patch points on the left-hand side, you can see there. We've got a single voice, a single filter. We've got an LFO and a full ADSR envelope. Plus we've got some buttons there. We've got like an octave of squishy little silicone buttons. But it's a really nice little unit, this. It's got a sort of, not a chunky little feel, but just feels nice and substantial once it's in its box. But it doesn't have to be in its box. If I take these screws out, I've put these little Merleys in from Befaco just because they're easy to unscrew. If we look here, we've got a power supply input for Eurorack, so we can stick it in your Eurorack, but let's just put it back in the box. And let's plug it in. LFO's flashing, so we're getting power, we're plugged in. And it's working. Okay, sounds nice and fast already, doesn't it? And I've not touched anything on this yet. We'll play one of the patches in a minute, but let's just see what we've got. We've got the VCO. And that's got a huge range, hasn't it? Got a couple of waves in there. We've got a sawtooth, a square. Change the pulse width. And we can blend between the sawtooth and the square. So quite a fully featured little oscillator. Let's put a bit of pulse width modulation on. It's got a big synth sound, hasn't it? Trying not to let my hands get in the way, but it's quite difficult with it being this small. Cool, and then you got your typical Moog sounding filter. Really old school sounding, nice and smooth. Really does have a nice tone, that single oscillator, but nice and full and rich. But we also have a second oscillator on the LFO. And you can hear there that goes into audio rates, that sort of FM territory. All those noises that sound like they're coming from a 1960s lab. But let's have a listen to it as a second oscillator using the Patchbay. We've got 23 ins and outs on the Patchbay. We've got all the things that you may expect, like we've got an envelope generator out, we've got the LFO out, we've got the VCO out. We've also got some things that you may not expect, like an attenuator. An attenuator is effectively a volume knob. You put a signal into it, and then you can turn it up or down. We've also got a mult, which means you can split signals to go to two places. Once we've got a mult and an attenuator, you realise that you can start doing quite complex things. And we've got this adder here. That's probably not the technical name. It's probably called a summer or something like that. But we've got two inputs and they're added together. But if you think you put one of them through the attenuator, then you can change the level of one and not the other, and then send them both somewhere else. So you can take the two oscillators, change the levels between them, and then send them into this thing called the fold in. And we've got a wave folder on this, and I'll show the wave folder in a second, but let's have a little play with the Patchbay. Let's look at one of these, shall we? Let's look at this detuned dual square. So that gives us two oscillators. And what have we got to do here? We put the voice into the attenuator. That's so we can change the level of it. Then the attenuator out goes into number 2 of the summer, or the adder, or whatever it's called. We're going to put the LFO into number 1 of the adder, so that means we can use it as an oscillator now. And we're going to put the output of the adder into the wave folder in. Maybe turn that resonance down a bit. I've not matched all the dots up, but you can hear we're listening to just a single oscillator. And we can turn that down using this attenuator here. But using this 1 level, don't forget we've put the LFO into 1, we can turn the LFO up. So turn the oscillator off, we're listening to the LFO. But you'll notice there that it's not changing tone, or it's not changing pitch when I play, and that's because we've got to tell the LFO to play to the keyboard, which requires another cable, and we take the keyboard CV out to the LFO rate in. There we go, we've got a second oscillator, so put them together. There we go, nice fat 2 oscillator tone. And listening to the LFO on its own, we've got a triangle, square. Put 2 squares together, shall we? Or maybe make the LFO a sub. What else can we talk about? The fact that there's no MIDI on this. So unlike most synths, you've got MIDI, you can sync up with USB or a 5-pin DIN to your system. With this, you can't. You've got to use CV, which isn't that much of an issue because most controller keyboards, a bit like this, Arturia Keystep, all come with, well, not all of them, but most of them come with CV outputs now. So let's hook it up, shall we? Interesting that it sort of feels more like a real synth when you hook it up to a keyboard. And let's chuck a reverb on that because it'll sound nice. And I'm going to use this Empress reverb because it's absolutely lovely. Told you it made everything sound gorgeous, didn't I? Let's try now anyway, hooking it up to the modular system. First thing we're going to do, obviously, is unplug it. Unscrew it, I should say, take it out of its box. Then plug in the power and sit it in the rack. And this is why I've been using these nailies with it, these screws, just makes it really easy to put stuff in and out of your rack. I've got the pitch and the gate input for the Mavis coming from the Mother 32. So the Mother 32 is playing this. Same sound. Also the Mother 32 is playing itself in the sequence I'm going to play. I've got the subharmonicon controlling the speed of the DFAM and the Mother 32. And it just means you can do really nice things like this. It's a really well thought through piece of kit this. It sits nicely between the Mother 32 and the Workstat. It's got its own keyboard so you don't need anything else to play it with. It would be nice if it had MIDI so that you could easily sync it up to other stuff, USB MIDI in particular, if you're going to use your DAW. But the only thing I've really found that was a little bit of a niggle was while I was trying to set this patch up actually, was that trying to get the pitches directly tuned perfectly because they're such small knobs with such a wide range. It's doable, so it's a very, very minor niggle, but I recommend you check it out. It's got a really nice sound. It's the Moog sound. It's £330 and it's just, you know, perfectly formed little synth. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, don't forget you can catch it whenever you like on our Clubbing TV official YouTube channel on the From the Studio playlist. And if you are into this, you do want to look a little bit more into it, do check out my Starsky Carr YouTube channel because I've got a longer deep dive on there as well. So I'll see you in the next episode of From the Studio.